All right. Thanks for attending this latest Farmer Boys LinkedIn Live. In this case, we're going to be talking about the Farmer Boys Development Management Program or site selection. It's more than site selection, but this is a really fantastic benefit, a unique benefit that I've seen. Um, in my years of looking at FDDs and looking how franchisors support their franchisees in site selection. Um, and let me just turn this over right now to Joseph to give us a high level view on how their franchise development management or site selection program works. Thanks.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Mike. And thank you for having us here today. Our process with working with franchisees to develop new locations is very much a partnership, and it's very involved. And we take an active role in helping franchisees find sites that are going to be great long-term investments. As a brand, we're not in the business of opening locations just to have them close in a couple of years. We really do take a long-term perspective on growth, and our founders and owners who are still engaged in the brand actively really do take a much longer-term outlook on the brand. So what we try to do is really create this engagement and atmosphere of sharing and working together with our franchisees to find great locations, and with the staff and the resources that we provide to find the locations, to negotiate great lease terms, to work with the different agencies to get the restaurants built, whether it's the cities, whether it's the counties, all those different folks, to working through the construction, to getting your restaurant built, and then ultimately working with you to make sure that the restaurant opens and it's successful. It's a hand-in-hand process throughout that we're wholly engaged in and definitely want to partner in, and always want to make sure that our franchisees feel like they're supported and comfortable. We think that for us, this is a strategic advantage because a lot of franchisees have a lot of questions, and maybe they haven't done this before, or the restaurants they own, they purchased, so they didn't actually have to develop them. When we come to those sort of instances, we find that this is a great added advantage and value to our franchisees that they really can't find at a lot of other places. So it's definitely something that we think lends itself to our growth strategy. We're at 102 locations currently, and we're looking to double that over the next few years. And in doing so, going into great markets with great partners. And we think that our development strategy is going to help us accelerate that growth and make sure that we get there. And then going beyond those goals that we have is really seeing how do we keep evolving the process to accelerate our growth beyond that.
Okay, so a high level view on this is that you're taking a much more active role in doing the real estate development. And I'm going to just turn this over to Jim at this point to explain that in more detail, and then jump in at points when you think that we need to contrast what Jim is doing with sort of what you've seen in industry standards. So, Jim, I'm going to give it up to you and just explain, maybe focus on that Phoenix area and explain what the franchisee needs to know about the development management that you guys are giving them for free. I think you should be charging them, but uh, and just walk us through and maybe focus
Sure,
on various areas.
sure. Well, thank you, Michael. And Joseph, thank you for that, laying the groundwork of what we're going to talk about today. Any successful rollout is really made up of two components, and that's people and process. And here at Farmer Boys, we like to think that we are working with the best people and executing a clearly defined process in how we go out and conduct our site selection and ultimately negotiate leases or purchases on property that are going to benefit Farmer Boys for the long term. When we talk about people, we're really partnering with the brokerage community. And specifically in Phoenix, we're working with Velocity Retail Group, which is one of the best tenant reps in the business. They have deep knowledge and roots in the Phoenix market, knowledge with landlords and developers that give us key insights on what properties are available in the market and how those line up with the strategy that we're pursuing. When we talk about process, Farmer Boys uses the most advanced analytics and modeling to target sites in the business. We use CBRE's Retail Form Analytics, which is a multivariate regression model, along with doing analog comparisons to existing stores in order to identify markets that have the highest sales potential based on demographic factors that have the highest correlation to maximize sales. So basically, we're running regression analysis based on the current store base, and we are isolating those demographic factors that drive sales, and we focus on sites that are in the top 10% of the chain.
So
Now, when you do it, go ahead.
well, I was just gonna, to jump in, ask Ned to jump in here, because it sounds like what you're describing is Farmer Boys is trying to get those A plus sites independently of how that site is going to be owned, controlled, or leased. Ned, do you want to say something about that sort of idea?
Yeah, thanks, Mike. First of all, I think it's interesting with Farmer Boys in that Farmer Boys is still like a founder-led and owned brand. And so, I think to me that like speaks volumes. And I think one of the key tenets, in addition to executing at a high level of quality and partnering closely with their franchisees, is kind of the real estate forward nature of, Farmer Boys strategy. And so, from my exposure to Jim and what's happening there, is that this is a unique offering and a unique approach that if you're a franchisee looking for a real estate solution, and we're all looking for those solutions as we build out multi-unit chains or even individual units, like the real estate acquisition strategy and finding the great sites is one of the most difficult parts of the process. And so what I've found is that Farmer Boys has taken that step forward and is really doing a fantastic job in that respect. And I think how that contrasts in other parts of the industry, I think there are some larger brands like McDonald's and Chick-fil-A that are out there procuring real estate and then deploying elements of that real estate, to their, franchise network. But then I think a lot of other brands are leaving that in the hands of their franchisees to go find that with assistance. And so I really find this, hands-on approach and the capabilities that Jim is speaking about, really refreshing and something that a franchisee can really put a lot of faith in and give them a step forward, and actually, could save a year or 2 years off of a franchisee's desire, to enter a brand and open a restaurant. A lot of this work's being done for them.
Yeah, let me just ask Joseph then Jim, to follow up on that idea. How, because it's something that we had talked about earlier, on how this development management program allows Farmer Boys, with their 105 units, their 102, to compete with the Chick-fil-A's and McDonald's of the world and really get those AA plus sites. And this had to do with the guarantees, the program. So, because that's really important. If you can say that we're doing this,
Right.
but explain. I mean, because I found this really fascinating, Jim, about how you were able to compete with these people. And there's a couple of aspects here I want to get to, but how are you able to compete?
Well, I think that I don't know. Joseph said this early on. There's Farmer Boys, and then we have the real estate arm, which is HHI, which is Havaja Holdings, and we are the preferred developer for Farmer Boys. So when we are out in the market in our site selection process, dealing with developers and sellers of land, we have a key advantage as a developer where we also have a tenant. We are not the typical, or not, shouldn't say typical, we are not the merchant developer that is going out, tying up an owner's property and then going out and looking for a tenant for that site. They know that our deal is real, that we have a tenant in tow, and they know who the user is going to be. That gives us an advantage because we have the tenant. And also, as Michael mentioned, the guarantee. And Joseph said that our founders are involved in the real estate process to the point where they're out on real estate tours, boots on the ground, walking the property. They still have I'm going to just call it the old school approach of wanting to put eyes on the property, walk the property, be out in the trade area. We use our analytics to validate what we see on the ground, and vice versa. We want to go out on the ground and seeing the site, and ensure that what we're seeing in the data is true in the market. So that gives us the advantage of going out and really procuring these A sites for Farmer Boys and our franchisees. And we do that in many cases ahead of having a franchisee, and then we'll screen the site with senior management, with operations, and then we'll bring the franchisee out so that we all have buy-in before the site goes to real estate committee for approval.
So I'm going to come back to a couple of good ideas that you've, or interesting ideas that I think our audience wants to know about. But I'm going to just turn this over to John at this point. And John, if you could explain from your point of view how having this, I'll call real estate pipeline with sites that are ready to go. I may be misspeaking here, but that's got to be a clear advantage for you in your franchise sales conversations. This is it sounds to me like this is a program that I might describe as done with you site selection. Is that right?
Yeah, I think that's accurate, Mike. I think a big part of it, and one of the advantages we have as an organization, is Jim's already out there in very connected in the broker community and just in a whole variety of markets. And so if somebody comes to us from the Bay Area or from Reno or what have you, we already have folks out there that are starting to send us leads on sites that would work for the Farm Boys brand. And so, per se, I think there's a lot of warm markets out there, based upon, Jim's, long tenure in the communities, has a deep reach into the community and has a lot of contacts that he can pull from, once we find a franchisee that's ready to go. And I think ultimately, particularly in markets that we're currently developing, and the beauty of it is it shortens the kind of the ramp up time for a potential franchisee, where we may already have sites identified, and we can activate pretty quickly and get them from signing a franchise agreement to being open in a relatively short time.
So when you're talking with people, John, how not only is it a short time, you're taking a huge problem away from them, because you've literally hundreds of times, compared to what they're doing. I wonder if you could just speak about the comfort level that gives them.
Yeah, I think it's a great question. I can tell you, talking to a bunch of different, folks that are looking at the brand, and I've had discussions with, and folks we're currently working with, and they'll convey to me, their experience with other brands. And oftentimes, it's basically, here's the system, here's where we're developing, go out and get them, Tiger. And that's not how we operate. We operate where it's just highly supportive. You're working with a person like Jim that has been doing this for a very long time. And we're going to find you great sites rather than you as an individual owner or operator, or maybe you're a multi-unit operator, trying to negotiate that marketplace by yourself. We do that for you, which I think is a unique advantage compared to a lot of other franchise offerings that you find on the market.
And so when you're explaining to a franchisee this program and you're saying, okay, we've got this real estate development program and it's going to help you get to market quicker, and we've selected the A sites, what sort of pushback do you get on from the franchisees saying, oh no, I found this site, it's terrific, and the rent is cheaper?
Well, that does happen. That does happen. And, I'll refer back to our high average unit volume and the fact that we're a 44-year-old organization that has had continuous growth and that we're a very stable organization. And so our expertise in picking these A sites that we know will be successful to brand, I think is unparalleled. And so, sometimes those are tough conversations, quite candidly, because, folks can get enamored with a site because of maybe the price tag. But at the end of the day, we have that history and experience. And we know that, if we don't go for those A sites, those main sites, that they don't perform as well. And so we want to set up the franchisee for success. Ultimately, we want our franchisees to become multi-unit franchisees and to grow with us. And it's only done through lining them up with great sites. And so we walk them through the process and help them understand why they may want to look at a different type of site rather than maybe a B or C site that won't perform as well in the future.
Joe, you said you had a question. For John here on where we are, let me just throw you up on the screen.
Sure. Yeah, John, we've got a question from the audience. They're curious. I'm going to paraphrase the question. They're curious. Are you focused on multi-unit franchisees? And currently, what types of franchisees do you have? What's the mix between single unit, multi-unit, and large multi-unit or enterprise multi-unit? How does that shape up for Farmer Boys?
Yeah, thank you, Joe. So we are about 50-50, working with single operators that we hope to grow into multi-units, and also engaged in conversations with folks that are in the multi-unit world with other brands that are looking to add us to the portfolio. And so, from a brand perspective, we were built with a lot of folks that came in and developed one store and now have many more. So we are definitely wide open to that type of franchisee. But ideally, as we look to accelerate our growth and to have a stronger presence in some of these markets, we want to also find multi-units out there that can help us accelerate and grow faster.
John, right now you're focused, one of your big focuses is on the Phoenix DMA. So I'm going to ask Jim a little bit more to explain a little bit more about what was attractive in terms of demographic trends and demand. Jim, what are you guys seeing in Phoenix that makes it such an attractive DMA to explore?
Well, I think that, as most people know, the Phoenix market is the third fastest growing market in the country in terms of residential development, new industry coming into the market. you have logistics, you have tech. There's just a lot of growth going on in that market. It's a very, very different economic drivers than, say, other markets in the country. We see a lot of similar demographic characteristics to Southern California. There's a lot of Southern California transplants. But really what's caused us to focus on Phoenix, aside from that, the economic drivers, is that we have 2 units in Phoenix that are very successful. And they are in the top 10% of the chain in terms of their sales volumes. So there's 2 stores we have that are performing in the top 10%. There's already brand recognition of the Farmer Boys brand in the market. So the focus of management has really been to go out and build on that success. So we've used our analytical tools to identify the hot spots of the Phoenix market to do our rollout and targeting A sites for the next 3 years. And then as those stores mature, we'll come back around and do our infill program. So right now, so we have 2 existing locations. Michael, I don't know if you're able to pull up the map or not, but
Jim, I do want to get the map. I just don't have it. I don't see it in my email to you, but we'll try and get that on, because
okay.
that's
Okay.
real. It's real important. I agree with you.
It is. And, we're talking about the people in the process, and I'm sure the audience wants to know what kind of success are we having in the market? Well, currently we have 11 projects in development. By this time next year, we'll have 12 stores open in the Phoenix Valley. So we're going to be going from 2 to 12 in 12 months. That is, it's a 6X. That is exponential growth for the brand. We have another 5 deals in progress that should be coming into committee this year. We have over 32 targets in the Phoenix Valley. So, overall, we see the Phoenix Valley as at least a 30-store market. And, within the last 24 months, we've been able to go from 2. And again, after 3 years, we're going to have 12 stores opening and operating in the Phoenix market. So that is proof that our people and process strategy in the Phoenix Valley is working for Farmer Boys and for our franchisees.
Yeah, so that's, I think, a real important observation, that you've got 32 of these. And, if what I'll do, Jim, I think this is a great way of getting the audience to see this, is we'll send them that picture of what that 32 territory, or the DMA, the Phoenix DMA, looks like. And then they can contact you and John afterwards for further information about, those various sites. Does that make sense?
It absolutely does. And one thing I wanted to add before we move back to John is that we have 2 sites, at least 2, where we've negotiated the deals. We control the site either through a lease or we own the property, that are ready for new franchisees. And so if you want to know more about those opportunities they're ready now, you should talk to John.
Well, John, tell us about those 2 ready sites, where they are, and can I get them for a nickel?
They're both 2 terrific sites, and back to what we were talking about earlier, they are A sites on Main and Main. So you can't get them for a nickel, but the Phoenix market is growing and a lot of demand in there, so it is competitive. But as Jim spoke to, the performance of the first 2 stores we've had in the market is really a clear demonstration that Farmer Boys brand recognition and its ability to go into new markets is really strong. And so we have 2 great operators out there. that are doing an amazing job of those stores, and really a lot of credit goes to them, but a lot of credit also goes to the two sites that Jim selected, because they were both home runs. And as Jim spoke to, it's amazing. We were surprised at the level of brand recognition. And I remember being on one of these type of sites during a real estate tour and having people stop me and saying, when are you coming to market? We love you. We can't wait till you come. And so I think there's a foundation of loyal customers out there that are just waiting for us to grow in the market. And I hear it in our two current stores, because I'll chat with customers occasionally, and they'll say, well, I live in Queens Creek, which is one of the areas we're developing in, but I drive here, because I love your brand so much. And I'm like, well, we're coming to your neighborhood. And so I think that's a great story. And it also tells us that the brand has legs beyond its current footprint of California, Nevada, and Arizona, where we know that this brand is a unique proposition. There's not many brands that can deliver the way we do over 3 meal periods and have the strength in 3 channels, really, with drive-through, dine-in, and takeout. And third-party delivery and everything else on top of that. And now with a mobile order, after we just launched, we're seeing strength in multiple channels, and that's not really necessarily kind of the norm, I think, for a lot of our competitors, particularly as we see it across day parts as well.
John, I think you talked about a lot of the attributes of the brand, which I think is great. And then with regard to the real estate approach, I think it's worth you guys double clicking on the fact that you're not taking a shotgun approach to development. You guys are really focusing on developing out markets. And I think that commitment, and from a real estate standpoint, from your ability to support it, to then building it out so that awareness builds on top of awareness, is a critical part of a development strategy. So maybe you and Jim could double click on that for a minute.
Yeah, sure. I can kick off. I think the way we approach real estate, as we've talked about, is different. There's not a lot of companies out there that give the level of support and give the lease guarantees that we do. And so that enables us to, really be side by side and competing against, folks like Starbucks and McDonald's for the same type of site. So getting these high quality sites is really kind of unique. And also the fact, as I spoke about earlier, this is a level of support I think is again not the norm in a lot of other competitors. And so working closely with Jim in the site selection and understanding what the offerings and the demographics are and how you're going to be able to set yourself up for future success, I think is really unparalleled. And I think it's going to work in this market. I think it's going to work as we expand beyond the Phoenix market and continue to grow both north and east. So I think we're in an exciting place from that standpoint. And again, I think kind of uniquely positioned in the market. I'll toss it over to you, Jim.
Thanks, John. Let's add on to that. We've talked a lot about site selection, but there's a whole another aspect to it, which is the development management, whether it be the entitlements, the permitting, getting your CUP for the drive-through. We have a development manager on staff that does all of that work. That is not left to the franchisee. We do all of our own, obviously we do our zoning reviews, feasibility studies. We obtain all of those permits in advance, so the franchisee does not have to deal with any of that part of the process, which if you are inexperienced or have tried to deal with, processing permits and entitlements with the municipalities, you know how challenging that is. So we do that. That really shortens the timeline for the development of new projects. The other thing is also the type of projects that we're going after to mitigate risk. We're going after pad-ready sites, many times in grocery anchored or home improvement anchored type centers, whether it be Home Depot or Lowe's. where the landlord or the developer is doing all of the on-site and off-site work, which, as we know, can be very costly. So all of those costs are known upfront, so there's no surprises. So when we do our construction budgets and our project goes into committee, we have a very good understanding of what the costs are going to be, so that we can limit any cost overruns. I mean, we all know how expensive or how the increase in construction costs have gone up over the last 4 years. Hopefully there's going to be some relief there, but knowing what your costs are is very important, so that that pro forma that we put together is reliable. So I can toss it back to someone else if there's more questions and details on
Ned,
that aspect.
want to jump in here, Ned?
Yeah, I'll jump in one more time. I think again, I think back to a comment I made earlier about this not being a shotgun approach to development and all the capabilities that you're hearing. To me, I think my view on Farmer Boy's development strategy, it's a very responsible and supportive approach to growth. And so I think instead of growth for the sake of putting, flags on a map or restaurants on the board, I think it's a very thought forward way of building a brand and building a business, and this market by market approach to doing that with all the capabilities they bring to bear. It does, resonate as a responsible approach to growth. And also it's highly, facilitating for someone that comes in that's a great operator, that's got capital, that needs this type of real estate support and brand formula. So I just wanted to make that comment. And I don't know if Jim or John wanted to follow up on that, but I think it is responsible and makes a lot of sense, particularly in an environment where some brands are just looking to grow as fast as they can grow wherever they can grow, and their ability to either support it or it build upon itself within a market as an afterthought sometimes.
Ned, to add on to that, we have our pre-approved general contractors that we've done business with. We're establishing those relationships in the Phoenix market. We're going to have our brand, or actually our vendor network with our subcontractors and our fixtures and equipment suppliers. I mean, all of that is in place so that the construction process, getting through the opening, is efficient, and we can hit our target opening dates. Having that type of relationships with our GCs and vendors and building our stores, I mean, that enhances the consistency of the brand and the stores in the market. Having repeat builders working and building a prototype, with our restaurant layout, our site layout, with our drive-throughs. It's not starting from scratch on each site. We have a prototype, and which creates efficiencies for development.
Let me just jump in here and get both Neds and all of you to comment on, you're coming out of California, probably one of the most complex regulatory states ever in the world. And you're going into Arizona considerably, which I think most people would think was considerably less. Are you seeing that, I'll say, losing that regulatory drag as translating into direct sales in the Phoenix market?
Well, let me just comment on the development side of it. The regulatory environment and working with the municipalities for getting through building and safety and all the other departments we need to go through is unfortunately becoming a lot like California. But the good thing is that we're working with developers that have long-standing relationships with the different municipalities that really want to expedite development. So they are more development friendly than California, but you still have to go through entitlement and permitting. And the fact that we work with our development partners, we have architects that are in the market. We work with 7 civil engineers that are in the market. They're not coming in from California or other states. We are doing business with local architects and engineers that have contacts within those cities to hopefully get our sites through the process in an efficient manner.
And Ned, do you want to talk in sort of in general about the, moving out of the California regulatory scheme? I'll say do. I think you're muted.
Yeah, great. I think there are a lot of jurisdictions that are easier to operate in than California. But I think to Jim's point, I think there are a lot of people that follow California from a regulatory perspective, and so I do think it's important to have a brand like Farmer Boys that's already operated in one of the most complex environments to operate in. Whether it's from a regulatory standpoint or from the changing operating cost of running restaurants. And so as a brand like Farmer Boys expands out into other areas, and they're able to, apply the knowledge that they have into those other markets. So in markets that might be easier to operate in or quicker to navigate through, then, I think that's just speeds, the development aspect. And so I think it just speaks well for, that, like a brand I worked at in the past had a big California presence. I think, our experience in dealing with health codes and quality assurance and, the whole environment, I think translated into other markets and allowed us to, be above the bar of what's needed, from a brand standard, brand support, brand capability. And so, I think it should speak well for Farmer Boys, also.
This is Joseph, Mike. I would add to that, and I think to echo what Ned is saying, is that the luxury of being from California is that we know how to get it done, right? Of our 102 restaurants, we have 9 in Nevada and 2 in Phoenix, and the rest are in California. So with our 39 million person population and $4 trillion GDP in the state, we have all the regulations in the world, but we have all the desire to keep growing and keep doing more. And as we go into new markets, we find that we know what we're doing. We can tackle almost every single problem, and we can do it efficiently. And people absolutely love our brand, right? Our brand's not gimmicky. It's high quality food, fresh through a drive-through. Our menu's complicated. Our guests love that. It's big. And we do well, and as we go away from our core markets. So I think that the fact that we're coming out of California, where every obstacle there is in the business world can be thrown at us, and they are consistently thrown at us, and we figure out how to solve them. And that's a lot of what I get to do, is great for anybody looking to develop with us outside of our core market, but also in our core market, right? We know how to do it. We've been here for a long time, and going into Phoenix, our franchisees love it because it's an easier place to operate. Is it 100% easier? No, but it is easier. It's easier to operate. And as we go into new markets, we're going to figure out how to meet those challenges head on and adapt and learn and grow and keep doing what we do. And that's, we do well. And we're built to last. And the experience that we've had here in California has set us up to be a brand that can pretty much weather any obstacles.
So I'm going to ask, I think that's very well said, Joseph, and I'm going to ask then Jim to you're going into other markets other than Phoenix. And so your Phoenix experience, Jim, how well does this translate into you guys opening up other DMAs? Or is there something about Phoenix that was unique?
I think getting back to people and process, we identify a market that has the potential. We have the ability to replicate the the people and process strategy in other markets, specifically the Denver DMA, Colorado. Doing some preliminary work there. We've already identified 7 trade areas, 7 market areas, working with a developer that I have a relationship with. There's 7 locations. We could start a rollout if we had the right franchisee. So some of that legwork has been done there. Again, it's working with the right brokers, having the right franchisee partner, and being able to go out and execute and secure those sites in that Denver DMA. So yes, our process translates to other markets that are a good fit for the Farmer Boys brand.
Jim just mentioned good fit for the Farmer Boys brand and like a focus on markets. And so I think that's again something I see coming out from Farmer Boys. As you guys think about like accelerating growth in Phoenix or Denver and other markets, are there any plans or ideas you have for helping accelerate growth in those markets and bringing in new prospects?
John, you want to take that?
Yeah, I can take that. And so one of the things we're looking at, and I spoke to it earlier around really looking towards working with more multi-unit developers in the future so we can start to accelerate our growth. One of the things we're looking at is a franchise incentive program that could pay up to $100,000, where if you commit to a set of stores to develop over an area development agreement, a time period that we would agree upon, that as you open those stores, we would rebate your payment of the royalty up to $100,000. And so I think it's unique, it's attractive. Nothing I think could be more exciting than getting a check for $100,000 to further make investments. Go have fun, go to Europe, whatever you want to do. But I think it would be, I think, really kind of fun and unique to be part of that experience. And so I'm looking forward to handing out some of those checks. And so we're doing it to both help us penetrate new markets that we're in California and in Nevada and in Arizona, but also as we spoke to a minute ago, as we think about some of these new DMAs, be they Denver or potentially Texas in the future, New Mexico, there's a lot of I think markets where we know the brand based upon our current success in the markets that we're in. We know we can be successful in, and so we're excited about using this tool and leveraging it to start to hopefully accelerate that growth. And so I'd love for some of the folks on this call to be part of that journey with us.
Well, all they have to do is ask for that picture of the Phoenix DMA.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's an exciting picture.
Joe, is there anybody, is there a question that you'd like to get in front of the panel? Joe?
You're putting me on the spot to ask a question. I would like to know, are you open, John, to investment groups with operating partners with experience becoming franchisees? Is that part of the mix? Would Farmer Boys look at those people as potential multi-unit operators?
I think the short answer is absolutely. Getting operators and investment groups that are at that kind of enterprise level where they could do, they could be ready for significant growth and maybe at a more rapid pace, that we'd be wide open to having that discussion. I would say the only caveat is we do have some sensitivity to what kind of brands they operate. And so if it was a breakfast brand or a current burger brand, that may lead to a different conversation.
Oh. And let's go back, and I want to circle back to a couple of things that Jim has raised, especially about going into these other markets. And I know, Jim, you know this well. A lot of your credibility is because of the work of, I'll say, H Holdings does, and getting to meet, as we had talked about earlier, getting to meet these large property owners, landlords, and know sort of the lay of land beforehand. So I wonder if you could articulate that again as a way of explaining to our audience why you're getting those AA plus sites before somebody else, because you know about them.
Well, again, I keep getting back to the people and the process. In Phoenix, I would say our new development, we have at least 4 of our sites with the same developer.
Right.
So we have a lot of repeat business with the developers that have the key sites that we want to go after. Once you've proven that you're able to go through the process with them and negotiate either a good ground lease or a purchase transaction of an excess pad that they want to sell, and you've negotiated in good faith and you've been a good partner, they'll want to do business with you again. And so that is one aspect of why we're able to get the A sites and have these give ourselves an advantage. It's not only the brand is obviously the priority, but it's also the relationships that we bring and how we work with our development partners.
And again, I want to go back to one of the things you said, and maybe I'll get John. No, let me follow up on this idea of pad ready. What does that actually mean to maybe some of the people in the audience who aren't quite familiar with that?
I'm happy to explain that.
Yeah.
So in pad ready, that means the developer is taking on any costs for offsites, which may be bringing utilities to the pad, putting in curbs and gutters, the infrastructure, the stormwater management, bringing utilities to the on-sites where they are doing the grading, they are installing your parking lot, your lighting. All of those costs are significant. So we're going after pad ready sites where those are included as part of the landlord's work, and utilities are already stubbed to where our building is going to be located. Basically, it's mitigating the unknowns of development. So when you've already set the guidelines or the landlord's work, you have a better idea of what your costs are going to be just to develop your building, your restaurant on that pad ready site. Is that a clear explanation? Want any further detail?
No, sorry, Joe wanted to ask a question
Okay.
about this, I think.
Actually, I will ask a question about pad ready. And does that mean I can get more of my locations next to a Home Depot with all the traffic that they have? Is that what that turns into, Jim?
Absolutely. It's Home Depot. In fact, we have a number of those deals in Phoenix. Anybody in development knows if you can get a pad in front of a Home Depot, it is the least risky pad you can acquire as far as knowing what you're going to get from Home Depot in terms of it being pad ready. All of the work that I just described is going to be done. Not only that, Home Depot and the supermarkets, they have some of the best market research in the business. They're making investments for 30, 40, 50 years. They plan on being there. And the traffic generators of a Home Depot or a supermarket, that is a very low risk proposition. So that's what we're going after. So yes, that is a pad ready site. And in fact, the opportunity that we spoke of earlier, talked to John about, is a pad ready site in front of a Home Depot.
Well, that sounds very, very attractive. My original question was for John, came from the audience, and they're curious about non-traditional and whether you're doing express type locations or large format non-traditional for like casinos and universities where you can get the full menu, even though you likely would not have drive-through. But is that a focus?
Yeah. So great question.
Would express units ever come into play?
Yeah. Yeah, I'd say two things. So yes, we are focused on large formats. So the freestanding buildings with the drive-through is definitely the proven model for us. I come from a background of alternative sites. I spent many years with Starbucks, and that was what we did, and a variety of different kind of environments, whether it was a Target or a casino or a military base. And so, I have that experience and the knowledge that those sites can be very successful. And so we're in dialogue with a casino currently. And it is something we are open to looking at. Is it our primary focus? No. But we would love to talk to you if you have a great alternative site that you think would work for the brand. Please reach out. I'd love to have a conversation with you.
And Joe, do you have a follow-up on that?
The only follow-up with that, and John and I both have very similar backgrounds in doing non-traditional alternative site development. Some of these captive audiences, what kind of captivity are you looking for in terms of where you would go? Would you do like Starbucks has done, put a kiosk in the front of a Kroger, or does it have to be more of a military base where you've got a huge captive audience and you can deliver that entire menu, breakfast, lunch, and dinner that Joseph described that Farmer Boys excels at?
Yeah, great question, and definitely the latter. I think our experience in the past has been in shopping malls, and I think everybody's aware of the trend and direction that shopping malls have taken over the last decade. And so they weren't able to really kind of capitalize on our amazing breakfast offerings. And so limited ability to capture, really driven by the traffic in the mall. And so we exited both of those opportunities in the past. And so I think we learned from that as well. And I think we understand that if it was to be a successful alternative site, we would really want it to be one that was high volume and able to execute all 3 day parts effectively.
So, Ned, do you want to, we're getting close to the top of the hour here. Do you want to just wrap this up for us and say from your vantage point, how would you summarize this offering in a one-liner? I sort of think that it's sort of like we're doing the hard work for you to guarantee your success, something like that. Now, Ned, you realize this will be a marketing challenge. We're going to use this. Your summary.
Yeah, well, I think I probably kicked it to Joseph too, because I think Joseph articulates the brand really well. But I do think, as I mentioned earlier, I think this is a responsible, supportive, well thought out, franchise offering that is anchored in, its original founders. So nobody else has been in, kind of bending the brand one way or another. They're true to themselves. They're true to their stakeholders. And, so I think it's a highly responsible franchise worth a look. So Joseph, why don't you take that?
Yeah, I think for me, when I look at our brand and sort of what we're trying to do here, I think it's a unique special opportunity that we have to grow a great brand, and I think we can reach a lot of places. I think the nature of our menu and our offerings to our guests really do lend itself to a lot of growth, but a lot of long-term stability, right? We're not gimmicky. We're not trying to, be the next fad. We're not an early adopter of pretty much anything. We're tried and true. We're very consistent. We're classic, if you will. What we've always done in being fresh and healthy has now become popular and cool, right, with people. We've always done it, though. And I think that a lot of what we do is sort of full circle out there where guests and customers want better quality. They want to know what they're eating. They want to know what it's from. They don't want bad. They want decadent, right? People want decadent. They want a big, juicy burger. They want it with bacon. They want it with great cheese. They don't mind the calories as much if they know it's at least good quality ingredients that are going into them, right? So decadent versus, other things. I think that we're at times more decadent in that we're quality and we're easy to get to. And we also make it the way that our guests want. And that's something that, there's less and less of that out there in what you call it, fast casual, QSR, whatever. We aren't quite any of those things. We're a mixture of them. And I think being a little bit unique and different is what makes us special. And we're not super cookie cutter. We do have a lot of things that are unique about us and are in the nature of our brand, and that comes from our people and our experience. And I think that as we look to scale the brand and grow and have more reach, we are always looking to evolve and get better, but we're not looking to evolve to be anybody else. We're always looking to evolve to be the best version of us. And I think that right now, for somebody looking to join a brand and looking at all the different opportunities out there, again, we are unique. We're a little bit different, but I think it's an ideal time to join this brand because we have a lot of momentum that I think is going to carry us, and it's going to carry us to new heights.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Joseph, John, Jim. Terrific discussion. Ned, as always, brilliant. And the squirrel in the background, Joseph, always working hard. Thank you, guys. We'll see you next time. Really appreciate it. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thank you, team.
Thank you.